Mr. Mutoro, thanks for speaking with us. The Communications Commission of Kenya this week began switching off what they say is as many as 2.5 million counterfeit mobile phones that are being used on the 4 mobile networks. What is the consumer perspective on this?
Yeah, of course, as a consumer federation, this is something that was worrying us. You know, 3 months ago, when we were first told they were going to have a switch off, we opposed it, outrightly opposed it. But then we conducted a study through InfoTrack Harris. And unfortunately, for us, an overwhelming majority of the public were in support of the disconnection.
Really?
Seemingly, the media had, I think, hyped the thing that it was actually anti-terrorist. You know, there's a perception that the phones are being used by terrorists. Now, little they know, for example, that if you are not able to regulate the SIM card, merely the phone as a carrier of the SIM card is actually not very important. But for us, of major concern was the fact that these phones had entered the market in the right way.
And that is the problem exactly. How do these counterfeit phones make their way into the country? These phones that have not been type approved by the CCK, how do they make their way into people's hands?
Actually, for us, it's not even a loophole, it's an impunity. Right. Failure to do the job by the Kenya Revenue Authority, for example, failure for the Kenya Bureau of Standards exposes the consumers. Then ridiculously, for lack of a better word, then you find a very unfamiliar agency of government is the one actually fighting, purportedly fighting and counterfeits. And this is a regulator in the communication sector. And remember, this is beyond the communication sector, it's actually for the anti-counterfeits agency. Mm-hmm. What we know is this public knowledge, the major brands, phone makers, you know, Nokia, Samsung, and the rest, right, have actually been behind this war. They thought probably they would be able to make a boom, you know.
So as to gain some market share.
Yeah, but I think the reverse is equally true. That somewhere, you know, from the east, some cheaper phones have come in, you know, the Ideals and the likes. They have nothing to do with, you know, Korea and the likes of the countries. So, but for us, the most important thing is that you're punishing an innocent person. Here is a consumer who bought the who bought the phone, has all the documentation, even paid the tax, you know, on the same phone. And you're saying the phone is bad, you're not even reimbursing the tax, you're not compensating the person, so that is our concern.
How should this process have been done exactly? If it were up to you, you'd have a problem with the CCK being in charge of it instead of the anti-counterfeit agency. Ideally, how should it have worked out?
No, what it would have been done is that you want to look at it more comprehensively. First of all, CCK is a major player on communications. But then it required some sort of synergy within government, you know, possibly between KRA, Kenya Police. You're also looking at the Kenya Bureau of Standards, which has not even a definition of a fake or counterfeit phone. So we looked at it in a various ways. If somebody was trying to play some politics with this, actually it's business politics.
Right, because the government initially said there were as many as 2.5 million mobile phones being used in those 4 mobile networks, but when this switch of activity began, we're hearing a much smaller figure, maybe as little as half of that. That appears to be curious.
Yeah, I think somebody wanted to actually persuade the public, you know, that was a gimmick.
Trying to make the problem look bigger than it is.
Yes, actually it's sort of PR gimmick, just to let it be. I mean, and nobody could also give us a study. The basis of that 2.5, actually we do not know. Because even the CCK, because if they had ability, for example, to know that it was 2.5 fake phones, why is it now that the mobile service providers are reducing that number to less than a half? Because they should have argued that we announced 2.5, we are now talking about 0.8. What has happened?
Isn't part of the problem the fact that there are no strong consumer rights bodies fighting for consumers? Nobody is fighting for their rights, and all due respect to the Consumers Federation of Kenya, which you had. But this might have been a case for a class action lawsuit in other parts of the world.
Yes, the truth is that as Counterfeit, you know, we're a very young organization. We have not dealt with this kind of a problem. But the best way to deal with it is to actually look at Article 22 of the Constitution of Kenya, which allows for a class action suit. And we are contemplating that. While we do not want to stop the switch off, we actually are going to demand for compensation. So any Kenyan, we're actually appealing to any Kenyan who has a problem with a phone, if they have proper documentation, they bought from a proper shop that's a license, they are supposed to be entitled to compensation. So truth, yes, Counterfeit is not that strong, but we're actually working to strengthen ourselves. And the best way to strengthen ourselves is through this kind of program that we want to go through.